Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today about resilience. Like, it's a bit of a buzzword, but what do you think is at the core of that?
It is a buzzword, that's for sure, and something that I've thought a lot about over the years as a clinical psychologist, because when I trained as a clinical psych, I was very lucky to be part of the Auckland program, and it's a very dynamic program that's steeped in human development. Therefore, child and family would probably be the basis of all of my training.
Yeah.
And so everything I do and think about over the years is what's impact is this having on our kids. And so obviously resilience has been one word that you hear a lot of people talk about, and it's my biggest worry for us is it doesn't feel like we've really been conscious of the impact of the way that we've dealt with this on our children. So the question is, well, what is resilience, and then how do we grow resilience? And quite simply for me, resilience is the ability to function and operate effectively no matter what the context. And this is the irony, is I know that we are so fixated on progress. So we live in an era which is all about progress, but the irony is, I believe for us to fully understand resilience is we need to look back. If I think about the upbringing that I grew up with, was children were encouraged to be adventurous. So on a farm it was, Mum would ask us what we were doing that day. Let's say it's midsummer in Hawke's Bay, it's daylight at 6 o'clock, you're up having breakfast, you're not at school, you've got the weekend or a holiday, and then you're going to meet your friend who's 3 kilometres away to then go eeling in the river in the gorge. And then Mum would say, make sure you take enough food because it sounds like you're going all day, and remember that dinner's at 6, and if you're not home, it's a long time to breakfast. Now some people look at that and go, that's abusive, but what does it make you do at 7? It makes you make sure you take a pack with some food in it. It makes you also understand where the sun is and what time you need to be back, based on the fact that must be about 6 o'clock, I should be getting back. And we never went hungry, so if we were back late, it never mattered, but Mum was helping us get clear that you're actually responsible. But you can see how that required that as a result of that, you're growing all of the skills where catastrophe strikes. I remember one particular eeling trip down the back gorge, my brother, myself, and 2 of the neighbours, and we were eeling with a spears and gaffs, and I remember seeing a possum on a branch, and I threw the spear at the possum, and I thought I was going to get the possum, and it ducked, just dropped the trajectories, hit the branch, turned around, came back, and went straight in my leg, and that was a scar. And it opened my leg up because it was a lawnmower blade, so it opened my leg up, and you could see the bone. I opened it up to have a look. It wasn't bleeding that much because thankfully it didn't cut anything, and I'm just thinking, okay, so now I've got to get home. I wasn't thinking, call Mum or call Dad. We were at the back of the farm, I still had to get out of the gorge, so we had to get back on the motorbike, so we still had to get home. So you can see how that one moment, the shit's just hit the fan, catastrophe's just struck. There isn't a fragmentation or a falling apart or I'm going to die or oh my goodness, but that's the era we grew up in. And then I think too that at that time in New Zealand is where we had a lot of men in the mountains in helicopters chasing live deer. No seat belts, no high vis vests, no helmets, men hanging off 100-foot chains underneath helicopters, off trees, back into the helicopter. No health and safety pre-flight checks. But then we look at what was school like then. Monkey bars, they were on concrete or limestone. Now have to be on 500 mil of bark. There can't be so much coverage from the edge of the bark because the kids might hit their heads. But I never remember anybody breaking an arm on a monkey bar. So you can see how the context is set up in a way which is allowing children within safety to learn self-reliance, to understand that pain is a part of life, broken bones are a part of life, getting injured is a part of life. The first adventurers, when they went into Fiordland, didn't have maps. I looked at an outdoor magazine the other day. They counted up how many electric devices our modern hunters take into the wilderness. 18 different electrical devices to help them be safe, know where they were, and now they have to take these big solar panels to be able to charge their devices. So the irony is, we know how to grow resilience. We always did it. But we live in a society now where they don't want us to have resilience because they want us to have dependence. And they want us to be scared. The actual system, if we broke it down, isn't wanting resilience. And that's where I reckon people get a bit offended with what I say, because the schools don't want resilience, they want obedience. So you can see how that becomes a little bit questioning or challenging. So when people say to me, how do we go resilience? I say, first and foremost, let's make sure we want resilience. Because when I look at parenting, I reckon parents don't want resilience, they want obedience. If we take the tree climbing, for example, there's a natural law that happens. So parents step into their height to get their kid down. Worst thing you can do, because they have now just interjected with natural law. A child learns to climb a tree and they fall out. They fall out at the height which is developmentally appropriate. And they might bust an arm, but they're not going to die. But the parent saves them. Now we've stuffed the system because now they are above the height that they should be to learn. So a child, when you watch them, they never climb above the height that they learn is safe. And you see how that's a wonderful metaphor for the rest of the world, as the parent interjects at a time when they can learn the lesson they need to learn to then have the confidence to be able to be that age. So let's think alcohol for teenagers, because that's one I get asked a lot, is how do you navigate 2 teenage daughters, so that's what I had. How do you navigate alcohol, which is also asking how to navigate sex and all that sort of stuff with regards to having 2 daughters. And I went in my head, well, there's actually no dilemma, because all I do is go, before COVID, I just went 18 years old, they could walk through the Auckland International Airport and then be in Colombia in 12 or 13 hours. And I got no say in that. So I just keep reminding myself, at 18 years old, they could be anywhere in the world and there's nothing I can do to be there. So you better get them ready for flying international to the other side of the world and have a toolbox to cope. So all I did was, right, girls, 15 to 16, I need to know all the details. And I'll buy you your beer so you can take a look at a bottle of beers to the parties or whatever. That's 15 to 16. 16 to 17, you'll tell me where you want me to drop you off, but you will not tell me any of the details. And if you want me to pick you up, you'll message me and I'll just come pick you up, but I won't know any details. So that's 16 to 17. And then I said, and one night I just picked up my daughter she goes, oh, so where am I dropping tonight, sweetheart? She goes, Dinsdale. And I'm thinking, far out, Dinsdale, come on. But then again, most parents go, you can't go there. But I'm going, yeah, she can go there, because at 18, she could be anywhere in the world far worse than that. So she now needs to learn what isn't okay. So I said, all right, sweetheart, have a great time. So at 1 o'clock, she messages me and come pick me up. And she's pissed. Pick her up and I'm driving home. She said, Dad, why can't I stay the night? And I said, sweetheart, you know our rules. I said, from 17 to 18, you can stay wherever you want, with whoever you want, doing whatever you want. Because by 17 to 18, if you haven't got your shit sorted, we're stuffed. Because at 18, you'll think you've got your shit sorted and you'll piss off, but you won't. And then we'll be in big trouble, because I then having to hop on an international flight to come and get you from some sort of trouble on the other side of the world. We're buggered. So you can see how there's resilience in action. But before 15, you should have done some work. And I had 2 goals. One is that they can fight, and one is they can swim in the ocean. New Zealand's surrounded by ocean, so they should be able to swim, otherwise they're going to drown. And they should be able to handle themselves when they get punched in the face. Because the likelihood is, being a girl, a guy's going to grab their ass, or worse, grab them. But I didn't want them to get scared by that or cowed by that, to be able to turn around and say, go away, don't do that again. And if they did it again, to absolutely just drop them. You ask most parents how you're thinking about your teenage girls, they don't think like that. But for me, it's like, well, there's resilience, because guess what women were like in the old days? That's how they were. And they don't have to be like that now, but the primary bits underneath have to be the same.
So I've now just gone over, I guess, a couple of my pieces of advice for how I think people can build more resilient children. If you had to quickly summarise 2 pieces of advice, what would they be? Understand that you've got to help yourself and your children have a relationship with discomfort and pain which is positive, and that it's a habit. So the further and longer you move away from discomfort and want and move more to comfort, the less your resilience will be. The key but underpinning bit though is that resilience comes from understanding that life is tough. And it's not that I'm saying harden up, but I am saying grow up. So advice is, if as a parent you create a space where it's always Christmas, you're dooming your child. Because they need to understand that Christmas and birthdays come only once or twice a year.
So there's this real essence that if we can help children have gratitude, we can help children have responsibility, have chores, whatever is developmentally appropriate. We're establishing a pattern of personal responsibility and contribution to a greater good. Resilience will grow as a part of that. And then when they hit difficulty, with guidance, with structure and support, allow them to find their way, which is developmentally appropriate, through the adversity, through the distress, through the emotions. And then on the other side of that, they are now more resilient. So when it hits next time, they'll get to a point where they know they can cope with maybe just a phone call, and then next time tell you about it later about what they did. And the last bit for me off that is that if they can understand that, the deeper psychology to it is whenever you conquer hard times, the resulting psychological experience is pride. 100%. And then pride is the foundation to self-belief, ambition, enthusiasm, and creating a life that you feel really satisfied about. So the irony is they have to suffer, they have to struggle for us to elicit courage, which then sets up a process that they feel pride, and then everything else takes care of itself. So probably the closing message for me is parental responsibility is to create those opportunities. And then the child will grow into that cool adolescent that everyone goes, well, your kids are so cool. And then the adult that contributes to the community.
Thanks so much for your time. Hopefully that's helped someone out there to get a little bit of insight into how they might help their children build more resilience.
I hope so too. And it's been a fun morning, so thank you very much.